This episode is sponsored by Zenro Clothing Co. Pick up your tees and or accessories at zenroclothingco.com and be sure to use offer code Socrates at checkout for 20% off select items. Also, if you're not into spending the money, just check out the Zenrail radio playlist. zenrailclothingco.com, music for your everyday. This episode also sponsored by The Pointy Bakery. If you're located in the Pointy area of Scarborough, Toronto, be sure to check out The Pointy Bakery, say what's up to Arville, and pick up a donut or two. Baked daily, crafted with love. This episode also sponsored by Podbean. Podbean is the podcasting platform of choice. It's the one that me and Vish use, and is great, you know, if you're looking to start that DIY podcast yourself. Definitely check out Podbean. Use the link podbean.com/SocraticGamers and gain 1 month of unlimited podcasting for free. Test it out, build that content. Anyone can podcast, right, Vish?
Yep.
Start a podcast and get your ideas out there. All right, enjoy the episode. All right, after a slight hiatus, we are finally back. Ended up getting the cocoa, but we'll get into that a little later because we just came back from watching the Northman, and I think since it's fresh in our minds, we should just go over that one first. The Northman movie. Mm-hmm. That guy. Oh, well, what are your initial impressions? Like, you liked it, you didn't like it, could have been better.
No, I liked it, but it's very artsy. Like,
very artsy.
Expect very artsy, very like the visuals and stuff are good, are nice to see
for sure.
But you do need a little bit of patience as you watch the movie.
Yeah, I totally. When we were reading the comments about it being a slow burn, I was like, well, what do you mean? But then you watch the movie, you're like, oh yeah, it's like a gradual build up. It was like 2 hours and 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, 2 hours 20, I think it was exactly.
Yeah, so
something like that.
I don't know how long his other movie was, The Witch, but it's interesting with these unique directors, especially this one that's coming out now. We checked it, he only made like 3 full-length movies, mm-hmm. right? Everything else has been shorts. Mm-hmm. He kind of reminds you of like when what's his name, M. Night Shyamalan was bursting onto the scene and everyone's like, oh, this guy's super unique. Mm-hmm. And then like if you watch like Guy Ritchie movies, Christopher Nolan movies, I really think in the future that this guy's going to become a big name as like a filmmaker. Like, I'm just waiting for him to take on something more commercial. Like what if he took on like God of War?
Right.
I could see that, you know, something like that, because like with this in his portfolio now with like massive violence mm-hmm. and like the Norse mythology, which mm-hmm. God of War's God of War is Greek?
Right now they're in Norse mythology.
Right, in the latest game, right? Yeah, I could see something like that because it was so visually astounding too. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, it almost reminded me of like a video game. I can see that. Right. So I turned over to your brother during the movie when he had to pick up the sword from like the chamber. Yeah. And then he fought the guy, and then he's like, oh, if I push him into the light, he'll freeze. Mm-hmm. It reminded me of like a video game. You know, it's like you have to beat the boss.
Right. Yeah. Figure out what the
trick is.
Yeah, what the weak points are.
Yeah. And I think he would do well with something like that.
Well, sometimes like it's interesting to see because it's like for me, like Taika did. I would say
Taika Waititi's another one. Yeah,
he's like
a great example as well.
He's got his own style of his movies, but they were like very indie type, right?
Yes.
But using a person with that kind of storytelling, and then now he's in the Marvel world, right?
That's what I mean.
So it's like
if he gets like a bigger name, like especially this new movie has like a bunch of stars like Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, even though they're like not really A-list celebrities now, like mm-hmm. they're past A-list. I think that if he, like with this under his belt, he can push for those bigger like Hollywood roles now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But like, all right, that all to say, you kind of have to watch this movie to understand what it is we're talking about in terms of the visuals and like the storytelling style. But I think what really hit me the hardest from this movie, we were talking about it in the car ride back, is how we are so animalistic as a species, but we kind of forgot that with our modernity. You know what I mean? Like, we have these buildings now, and like we have, you know, cars, vaccines, we can travel around the globe, but at our core, I still think we're animalistic. We can be pushed to a very animalistic level when provoked, you know? And like watching this movie, how it was like a revenge movie, and like, I mean, the Vikings were some fierce warriors, you know? Like, even like the way they'd slaughter like the whole village, and like they'd burn people alive. Like, that is a part of who we are as a species, but we kind of like shun it. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't know, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think we're like,
I don't think it's about shunning it. It's we were trying to.
like, what does civility really mean? You
Well,
know?
yeah, we're trying to evolve out where we don't have to just pillage and kill.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
But we do technically do that in different ways now.
Yeah, we have it in different ways, but we're not. It's not the same as it used to be, you know.
Right. For sure. Like, we're not like running into. Actually, no. Technically, if you look at the war aspect, like what's going on in Russia, Ukraine, it's like.
Well, what I mean by that is like that's why like other nations are disapproving of the actions, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to directly go against them either, because then they're going to create the whole world war, right? We don't want.
Right.
So
for
it's
sure,
like
for sure.
we have, yes, we can still do those sort of things, those actions, right? But we're trying to set rules and guidelines in a way
for
us
sure.
not to do those sort of things.
But then it makes you wonder, like, what is the rule of law? If you took away the rule of law, we would just. Oh, you know what it was? It was in John Wick. They said, I think it was John Wick 2. He's like, if it wasn't for rules, we'd be just like the animals. Like, the rules are what keep everything in line.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so true, because if you took away all the rules, I swear we'd revert back to that same Norse style very quickly.
Right. And it depends what you mean by rules. So like now we're all abiding to like the laws of a country, right? Before it would be the laws of their current tribe. Like, you wouldn't kill your own tribe members, or you get kicked out, or whatever the fact may be. But you can go and attack other tribes, right?
Okay, so what you're saying is like, it's
like
we're
rules,
still doing it.
We're still gonna have rules.
Okay, yeah, I see your point.
Right now, it's just more like we're trying to put the rules on a larger area.
But you know what it is too, though. It's rules created by war.
Yeah,
right? It's like, you can't uphold a rule without like a sword.
Yeah,
You need a sword in order to be like, don't do that.
Yeah.
There has to be like a consequence to your action.
Right. I mean, that's why the strongest military is America, right? So they can.
Right, for sure.
And
because
they have
the biggest army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they generally are the one dictating where we're going.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But okay, so taking all of that into consideration, what if there was like some solar flare that shut down everything? How quickly would we revert back to our old ways? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like,
we can very quickly. Like, you can see it in certain, I would say, like natural disasters.
Right.
And in certain areas, they were like, there was no rules anymore, right? We just go
Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
Like, where's that place where they do Mardi Gras?
New Orleans.
That's okay. So then there was like curfews, and there was like rioting, robbing, a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, they showed Japan.
Yeah.
They were like in order, in line. So maybe we have escaped the. Maybe we have escaped that barbaric nature.
I think that level of barbaric,
or maybe it's a European thing. It could be, right? Like, if you think about it.
I remember like hearing where it's like where like Europe was doing all like what we just saw in the movie. It's like, but in Asia's side, they had big cities. They're already past all these things.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I wonder if that's like, it's a cultural norm. You know, what we see is what we aspire to. And if you have an entire civilization of people who uphold things intrinsically, like they feel compelled to be nice to one another just because it's innate, because that's what you've been taught, right? But if you have a very conquering mindset, like this is mine, like the capitalistic, individualistic Western mindset, maybe that is why you see law and order.
Right, yeah. So it depends on, I guess, how your brain chemistry is set up, like, right? So it's like...
Right, yeah, but because like the Norse are Europeans.
Yeah.
And we just saw like the full-on slaughter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I really wonder about that, because on one hand, I feel like after watching that, I'm like, oh, we would deteriorate so quickly. But then on the other hand, it's like, maybe we wouldn't. Maybe we've come far enough to be like, oh, we're all going through a natural disaster. Let's work together.
That was an interesting... we saw the two things. So the Katrina is one reaction, and what happened in Japan.
Fukushima, I think.
Yeah.
It was like,
That's, Fukushima.
when they had their...
the power plants, and the floods and stuff. So it's like...
they're waiting in line. They're like, okay, we're going to get our food when we get our food.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you question, you know, like human nature. Like,
but there are also two different types of societies too, right? Because that's mainly Japanese people. So
right.
Within their own country, right? Where in America it's very it's a mixed, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So like, if
like
you're
racially,
all of
culturally mixed, yeah.
Yeah. If you're all one culture, it seems like there'd be more civility because you can.
Well, that's what
there'd be a class system for sure.
Yeah,
like rich and
of
poor.
course. Yeah.
But in terms of like being racist, you can't be racist to yourself.
Yeah.
But that's why we see a lot of animosity. I think we talked about this before in an old podcast, but like, because of the metropolitan nature of big cities, that's why you have so many racist components, you know?
Yeah, it's all new, right?
Or a clashing of beliefs, you know?
Yeah.
Do you remember that one time we went downtown and we saw the Christian evangelists at that main square in downtown? It looks like Times Square. I forgot what it's called. Somewhere in Yonge.
Okay. Yeah.
And like, you and I were watching it, and then there was a guy who was like a Satanist. He was standing there watching them, and I was like, oh, these two diverging opinions, like one believes in like Satan and one believes in Jesus.
Yeah.
If you put those two people together, they're naturally going to fight, you know, because they're two different cultures or like perspectives of the world. But like, as you said, if you go to Japan, it's like they're all Japanese people, so how are you guys going to clash? You'll only clash in terms of your differing socioeconomic status, but that's it. Yeah,
it depends on what you put as the top, right? So are you putting race and nationality, or are you putting religion on top of the pedestal there, right? So
yeah, that thought process really brings into the idea of like what we believe and like the stories we choose to tell ourselves, you know, like, because in this Northman movie, they were talking about gods and like, so he went on a killing spree, and he wanted them to think it was like a demon, right? And then it was funny because the next morning they found his like corpses that he left around, and then the old witch of the village was like, oh, a demon was here, but he killed them, and he was standing there like, he must have been chuckling to himself like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know, or you play with people's perceptions.
Well, that's what he wanted to do.
He
said he was going to torment them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what he was doing. Yeah.
And he was doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, us as a species, we're so... If it's not religion, then it's science. You know? If it's not science, it's voodoo. Or like, if it's not voodoo, it's like, you know, mysticism. Like something... There's always like, we try and explain away what we see to rationalize like our impression of like our surroundings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we try and look for a meaning to something rather than it being a thing.
Yeah, that's just how, in order to help you continue living, right? You don't want to be in without an answer. That adds, I guess, some sort of fear, right? It's a way to
The
control.
unknown. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You're trying to create order out of chaos.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and that's really, again, another thing that really shocked me watching this thing. Not only how barbaric we can be, but how naive we can be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we don't have objective reflection of our surroundings. Because remember when she found out that it was it was her son.
Yeah.
You know, and then she was like, the king was like crying. He's like, "What demon is this?" And then she's like, "No, I told you, it's my son." So like, put yourself together. Don't look weak in front of your people. Like, my son's the reason for all this.
Yeah.
But it's like, he couldn't hear it. You know, even though, because she said, "I told you already." So it's like, so why are you still believing in something even though I already told you the truth?
Right.
I think that has a lot to do with a lot of things in society, like vaccines and like.
Yeah, you can tell. That's true. Yeah, you can tell the truth, but unless you see it for yourself, you still have a hard time believing.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. And even if you do see it too, though, you can also be like, it doesn't make sense to me, so I don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
So like, if we go with the vaccine things, like, okay, it shows that the vaccines are working. Even though you see the statistic, you're like, no, I don't want to believe it because it doesn't fit in my preconceived notion of what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Believe.
Right, yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like, as a human being, that's like our folly. Like,
yeah, we will always not. It's about being right, even though you're wrong.
And we're fully controlled by things that we sometimes don't even fully understand.
Yeah.
That's so trippy. I just finished, no, sorry, I didn't finish it. I'm like really close to being done. This book on news media. And it was one of the things it was saying is like, the news is how we shape our perspective of the world around us. Right. And then they have this term, it's like mass media depression. Like, so if you just pay attention to the news and it's like, you don't understand that it's built to fearmonger, because that's how it sells its like newspapers, right? Like, fear is the biggest seller. If you don't realize that, you just keep reading these things, you can build like a clinical depression off of just headlines.
Yeah.
Right. Because then you start to think like, but you don't realize that these are.
Yeah. So that was the thing, right? Where I hear people say it all the time. Oh, the world is, look how bad the world is.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
In an overall statement, that's not true.
Right. Exactly. And then when you watch a movie like this, you're like, oh, the world could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Like, they're just killing people willy-nilly and nobody cares. Like,
there's no real justice. Yeah. That's just what it was.
That's exactly, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And it's crazy too, because we didn't have world news back then. This story of the Northman, it happened, but who else knew it happened?
Yeah.
So to those people, this is the craziest thing that's ever happened in their lives. Like, oh, you killed my dad and I got to go kill you, you know, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize in the grander scheme of things, like, the other person halfway around the world doesn't know who you are. They don't care about you.
Yeah.
They're like, sure, we made a movie about you like thousands of years later, but at that moment, nobody really cares.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's almost like if you just shut off your phone, or like you just don't use your computer for like a week, you don't know anything about the world. You actually do not. You're like so separated from the world, and then you realize quickly like how much none of it matters to you.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like, to really think about it, it's like we feel like as a species, or like as a society, we can chime in on a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we actually wouldn't know those things are happening if it wasn't for the news.
Yeah.
Or social media.
Yeah.
And like, how much different would your life be if you didn't pay attention to those things?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could, you'd probably feel like the world is a totally cool place.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I mean? Like, it's really weird to think about.
Yeah.
We're really like plagued with,
or at least have the knowledge that we know that what we're seeing in the news. I think that's the thing, is like you have to know that the news is just talking about these specific things. That's not
outliers.
The world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Outliers. It's not the world. It's not the full, like, it's not like happening 24/7 kind of thing. Even though that's 24/7 news, but it's.
Yes, totally. Yes. They're actually, that makes me think of another thing. Like, if you took the news of every single person, like 7 billion people on Earth, how many news stories are there a day? Let's say there's like 200,000. Like, let's just ballpark a number. 200,000 news stories every single day that they put on the news. They can get from like The Verge, like Wired magazine, BBC, you know what I mean? If you take all those things, but then if you take the total populace of the Earth, which is 7 billion people, that's like, percentage wise, you're getting a very tiny percent of what is happening day to day to everyone.
Right.
Like, I could go out there and like do something that will not make the news.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's news to me and the people that are around me.
Right.
You know, if somebody falls off their bike and I help them, but it didn't make the news story, it's like, did it really happen? Happened to me and that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you look at it like that, it's almost like the news is kind of ridiculous. Like, you're really just telling me very random outliers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's the news. Yeah.
But it can build up into such a big thing in your mind. You start to think that like, this is how the world is. You know, we're so controlled by like our minds. Isn't that, like, really think about it? That's really weird, dude. Yeah. like if there's nothing feeding your mind, which is AKA the news, like if there's no news feeding your anxiety in your mind, then like, what is there? Like, there'd be nothing feeding this like demon in your head.
Right. Yeah. You'd just be living life.
You just be living life. Yeah. That's so weird, right? You just be like, okay, I'm just gonna go out for a walk and get some food today.
Yeah.
That'll be my knowledge base.
Yeah.
But then like, you turn on your phone and you're like, dude, do you see this war that's going on? Dude, you see this like rising prices for houses? Do you see this, blah, blah, blah? And you're like, you're so inundated with information now that your brain can't possibly handle all that information.
Yeah.
And then it freaks you out because, like you were saying, like, we're looking for order. Right? Like, how do I solve this problem? But it's like, it's not your problem to solve. Weird, right? And yet we're talking about it on this podcast.
I mean, yeah, that's humans. That's what we do.
But I feel like also one thing that's really lost in society now is like discourse. Yeah. And I feel like with podcasts, like, okay, what I mean by discourse is like not a podcast. Even though our podcast is discourse, it's like you and I talking, right? But it's between you and I. But what is lost is regular people engaging in discourse, because through discourse, you can lead to like an answer for something. See, we just talked about like, oh, aren't people weird? And then like, look what we used to be. Like, we brought up a bunch of problems, but then through discourse, we came up with our own solution. Like, oh, if you just turn off your phone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we don't actively engage in like critical thought. You know, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say.
It's like nobody really thinks about like, why do we do things? Like, why is the news the way it is? Why is this happening the way it is? Like,
we've talked about this before. It's just sometimes we're following our innate desires, right? Or innate, like, is structurally just following that kind of method. Like, why we still do the same things that we did back then, which is like the chanting or like cheering.
That was an interesting.
You know what I mean?
Like
there are some of these things that there will be people that just follow along
mindlessly.
Yeah, that's just how we're built, right? Or those people are built. There are other people that require other things, right? So it depends. It's an evolution thing too. Like, what does the
Yes.
brain
Okay, I
want?
see what you're saying.
Right.
I see what you're saying. Yes. Because, like, have you ever engaged? I'm sure you've engaged in conversation with people who, like, you hit a wall.
Yeah.
They kind of just like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. You're like,
Yeah.
well, why not? You're like, I'm tired of this topic. And then
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, but we just scratched the surface. It got a little difficult, and then you stopped.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like, oh, your brain can't go any further. And then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you and I were engaging in this discourse, and we can just keep going back and forth until we run out of things to talk about.
Yeah, I think, that where that comes from is probably because we're training in that thing. We've been always doing that.
Interesting. Okay.
And
go
I
on.
wonder if it's something like a brain training in that way, to be able to handle things that are not necessarily agreeing to your worldview.
Yes. Ooh, this is a deep topic, actually. This is a very deep topic. All right, so because I've heard this before, and like exactly what you're saying. The thing that they said was when you think your ideas are who you are as a person, then you have that problem. But if you understand that ideas can be changed, then you're not basing your self-identity on what you think. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people base their self-identity on what they think.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to invest in this 401k. I need to, get this thing. I need to keep up with the Joneses. I need to blah, 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 blah. And it's like, those are just ideas. That's not you.
Yeah.
You know, or like, for example, racist people, right? They think like, oh, that race is bad, you know, but that's an idea. But then you tether who you are as a person to that idea, and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
Because as soon as somebody's like, no, they're actually not that bad, you're like, no, they're all bad.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. They're the reason why your society is so bad.
Yeah.
But then it's like your own. Like, there's different reasons, but it's too much to think about. So it's easy to blame.
Right. And I think it goes back to that order thing you're talking about, where it's like, if I can make sense of this, oh, dude, maybe that's what it is. It's like people who would prefer order are quick to solidify their stance because then it creates a structure in their mind that they can adhere to. But if you have like no order, you know, like Bruce Lee's The Way of No Way, then you're comfortable in the chaos. Like if something happens to you, you're like, okay, this just happened to me.
Right.
You know, but if something happens to you and you're stuck in a specific way, you're like, well, this can't happen to me because my life plan is I'm supposed to be this years old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's say,
Yeah. Right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, like, let's say you lose your job at like 50. You're like, but this can't happen to me. I'm not supposed to lose my job. I'm supposed to have a job until the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until I retire. I'm supposed to have this one job. But then you lose that job and you're like, well, who am I?
Yeah. That's the midlife crisis, right? That's
you're like, another, like the midlife crisis being like the idea of who I thought I was up to half of my lifespan, which is like 40, could be 50 now. In terms of like half of your lifespan, because you could be 80 or 100 when you die. You're like, I've built up this character in my head who's fictitious because you never spent the time to ask yourself, like, who is this character you're building? Dude, that's so trippy. And I think those people, like if we go back to the Northmen, I think those people that live in the village and like they were the slaves and like they were the kings, they're stuck in their ideas. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that the girl who was the witch, she was just aware of the whole thing playing out. And then she's considered a witch because like she not that she did that in the movie. I'm saying like you would think that these people were witches who were like not
following the
order.
Yeah.
You're like, why do you need to do that?
Yeah.
You're like, well, what do you mean? Why do I need to do that? Like Socrates, he was considered a weirdo
Yeah, it's not normal to ask why.
Yeah, it's not
everything.
normal to ask why. But all right, you know what's crazy? It's not normal to ask why, but the people at the highest level of governments who are directing things are asking why because they want to steer it in a specific direction.
Mm-hmm.
But then the people under them are like, they have it figured out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like we defer our inquisitive responsibility onto others because we're looking for some sort of order amidst the chaos.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that when they think about society. I think we really need to like look into history. I think history is super important for like understanding who we are as a species.
Yeah.
Like when we watch The Northman, like you could look at it like, oh, it's an action movie, a tale, blah, blah, you know, like, but if you look at it like how we're looking at it, like, no, this is what we do.
But a lot of people don't, right? But a lot of people don't make that kind of connection to current society. Like, where are the similarities? We don't look at the similarities. We're looking at the differences.
Yeah.
And focused on that only.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's weird too, like, speaking of that witch, she was talking about, like, she was the earth witch or something. He called her, I forgot what he called her, but like something about the earth goddess. And she's like, yeah, I'll use my...
Like she just knows about plants. You know what I mean?
About plants. yeah. So she said something about like using something from Mother Earth.
Isn't that like a herbologist or something? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's all she was, but it's considered a witch.
Right? And then when they showed what it is she was utilizing, it was mushrooms. It was the Amanita muscaria, which is like the most potent psychedelic mushroom out there. And then when I saw that, I like chuckled to myself because I'm like, you think she's a witch, but she's just using psychedelics, bro. You know, like how weird is it that we look at those like psychedelics as being witch like products back then, but then now we just like chalk them up scientifically. You know?
Yeah.
Like cannabis has become THC. It's become a chemical compound. Mushrooms has become psilocybin. We've like broken down the chemical compound
right
in a scientific way that we're like, we've created order out of chaos. It's like, no, it's not magic. It's THC. It's psilocybin.
Yeah. Right.
Weird, right?
But that's us as trying to understand the world, right?
Yeah. We've switched our gods. We've gone from like the nature god to the science god. They're both doing the exact same job, which is like, let me explain what it is you don't know. That is actually really trippy.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're not. Yeah, the scientist isn't necessarily saying that to the world, but they're trying to answer the questions for themselves. Right?
Yeah, totally.
That's what the scientists are. They're doing it for themselves, not necessarily for the world. It just, those researchers will come out to the world.
For sure.
But who are scientists? They're just asking questions.
Okay. Great that you said that. So I watched the Elon Musk interview, and one thing he said is, I want to expand the consciousness, the scope and scale of consciousness for humankind, right? And I'm like, that's what a mystic tries to do. He's like, why are we here, and what is the meaning of life? That is the fundamental question of like ancient yogis. Like all mystics are looking for that question, right? And I feel like we forgot, like basically we're doing the same thing over and over. We just give them different titles. Oh, he's a scientist now. But before it was like a mystic. But if you call him a mystic now, you're like, oh no, he's not a mystic, bro. He's a scientist.
The terminologies
it's like, what are you talking about? We're looking at the same things.
Yeah, I mean, the definitions changed, but yes.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you just looked at our similarities, maybe we could optimize our human experience. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at it as an anthropologist, which is why I love the book Sapiens by Yuval Harari. I forgot his full name, but he looks at human beings. The reason why it's called Sapiens is because he's looking at it like an animal.
Yeah.
Like he's looking, the book is about the story of the Homo sapien animal.
Right.
You know, he's not saying it's us. He's not people or whatever. He's like, he looks at it like a species. And when you look at it like that, it's like we have a lot of defining characteristics that we constantly play out, which is like hard for people to accept because you don't want to think you're an animal. You know, we're just like the animal that like walks upright, clothes itself, builds technology.
Yeah. Well, that's why being separate, that's, I guess, makes it easier to think we're not animals. And being separate from nature. But we require nature, though, for everything.
Yeah, totally. And that's what's so weird to think about, that we think, because if you look at it like in terms of nature, it's weird to think that we put ourselves at the apex, saying that, oh, look at the dominion we have over nature. Like, what other animal... Like, I've heard this so many times, right? Like, like, human beings are the apex of the animal kingdom, right? Because we build structures, we're off-worlding ourselves into space, right? But then when I heard that on a podcast, and I've heard people say it before, my immediate thought is like, what about ants? They're like everywhere, but we just don't. We're not ants, so we're not living their life. So we don't think that we're as grand. But if you were inhabiting the consciousness of an ant, maybe you'd think that you were grand too. Like, look at us building these internal canals and like food systems and
right.
Oh, there's this weird like human fungus that's growing out, you know, building like structures. But that's cool. We can still build within their walls because like you can have an ant infestation.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so who's really winning this battle here for supremacy? Or like,
I guess that is subjective, the meaning of what is supremacy. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what about
like, wouldn't that be then cockroaches? Because
I was going to say,
they can survive a nuclear blast. So
we can't.
We can't. So.
Or even like crocodiles, because like they're like the closest link. Apparently they were around during the dinosaur time, and
birds too, right? Or birds directly related with dinosaurs.
So it's like, like supremacy is subjective.
Yeah.
It's like maybe we're the only species that's creating a huge disruption. Right? So like maybe all other animals have learned how to work in conjunction with nature. Right? But we have not. We're utilizing nature for our advantage. It's sort of like an anthill, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you look at an anthill or like a termite mound, right? You're like, that looks kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's like building. That's similar to like our skyscrapers.
Right.
Right. You know, it's like, who's to say we are the grandest species? One thing you could argue is like space travel. Okay. But have you heard of tardigrades?
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
right? Those like microscopic things that live out in space.
Dude, that's like, another world.
What?
They're in another world, right? Like we can't even see them.
We can't even see them. Yeah. And apparently they can survive space travel.
Right. Yeah.
Like I think they shot them out into space and then they brought it back because they're trying to see what can kill them. It wouldn't die. They're like, what the hell?
It like hibernated, but then
it's
not dead. Yeah.
So does that count as the supremacy? You know what I mean? Like, according to whose metrics are you basing supremacy off of?
Yeah, that's true.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
If there was like a crazy volcanic disruption, we would die.
Yeah, a lot of natural disasters can... we see that, right? A lot of natural disasters can wipe our societies out.
Right. And then if that happens, we wouldn't be the most supreme...
Right, yeah, because,
it would be the tardigrades that could survive a volcanic blast. Or like viruses or bacteria. You know? I feel like we, like with our minds, like we've created this confusion. You know what I mean? Like the whole world has been built up out of mind, right? Because it's like you got to create the idea first and then you got to execute on that idea. But like, how do you do any of those things? Through your mind. Like do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, like computers, cars, it's all an idea first. It's all a mind game.
Yeah. Right.
And then we built up this, like everything, like religion, mind. What else? Like so the supremacy thing, mind. Or creating order out of chaos, mind.
Right.
Right? If the mind wasn't there, life would just go on. But we don't see that. We don't see that we're just a species ruled by a mind. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's like if we were brain dead, we couldn't rationalize the way that we currently are.
Right.
We'd still be living. Like let's say those people that like drilled through their nose back then, they like to fix your mental problem. What is that called? Lobotomies.
Yeah.
So if we lobotomize everyone, right, you would just be living. So they're like nature can live without the mind, but we don't realize that we're governed by the mind, which isn't real. Does that make sense?
Which isn't real.
It's okay. It's real because it's subjectively real. Everything's real, but it's not tangible. It's not physical. It's not within this nature dimension. You can't touch the mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, you can mess with its operating system, its hardware.
Yeah.
You can mess with our bodies, right? But what I mean is, it's like the idea of the elephant when you put the chain on it when it's a baby.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it grows up, and then it's like, oh, there must be a chain. I can't escape.
Right.
Even though you take away the chain. It's like because it's governed by mind.
I got you. Yeah.
And I feel like our whole society is governed by mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Weird, right?
Yeah, we've put our mental shackles.
Yes, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And like, that's why when you hear things
On
like
ideas. Yeah.
what?
Like mental shackles on ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you hear people say like anything's possible, why is that so inspiring? It's because you're freeing your mental shackle for just a moment. It's like, can I climb that mountain? No, you can never do that.
Right.
Oh, you won't have money for that. Well, it'll take too much time. You're too old. Blah blah blah. You create all these mind obstacles. But then when you hear somebody say like anything's possible, and then you're like anything is possible, for a moment you break the grip of mind, and then you're able to just do it. It's like if there was no mind, you just go do it. It's like, why even question it?
Right. I see. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's almost like Yoda's like, do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's
I
like,
do get what you're trying to say. But then it's the mind that is thinking in the version of survival, though, right?
exactly. But that's another mind thing. But if you just kill the mind, you would just do it.
Yeah.
Like you'd be like, what? Like,
So I see what you mean by when the mind is the one that's controlling you. Yeah.
but yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like our society is completely controlled by mind,
Sure. Yeah.
right? But if we all learn to kill the mind, maybe that's why like things like yoga, meditation, like Zen are super big right now. Like they're the thing that a lot of people aspire to, right? Why do people take yoga? Because like, oh, I want to calm my anxiety, you know? Or like the people who tell me they want to do like yoga for fitness, I'm like, there's a myriad of other things you can do for fitness. Like you don't really need to go down the yoga path, you know?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't meant for that. Yoga is like a spiritual pursuit. And then at the end of the yoga is like you realize that you're able to kill your mind and then go into like a present state awareness. Martial arts will do that too, like a lot of things, Zen practice, right? And I think that's why there's so much attraction towards it. Because they're realizing like, they're not realizing because it's not like conscious awareness of what's going on. I think they're just like feeling something. They're like, oh, I feel really good after practice. I feel like I was really there today. When you hear those things, it's like, of course, because you're engaged in them. Like there's no mind. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would a world look like if you were governed by, like, if you weren't governed by your mind, like if everyone knew the practice of like yoga meditation, or like Zen, wouldn't we have like a really weird world?
Yeah, I think
We'd
so.
have like a lot of doubt. We'd have like a lot of destruction of doubt because nobody would be doubting. It'd be like, hey, I want to go do this. Okay, go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do get what you're saying. We don't know what that kind of
We
world,
don't know. Yeah,
what that
agreed.
would look like because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's true. Apparently, in Cambodia, you know, like statue over there of like the dude meditating. It's on the very bottom shelf. So he is the leader from Cambodia, Jayavarman. He placed meditation at the epitome of his rule. He's like, that's why the statue is him meditating, because he believed that meditation is what would allow him to become an amazing leader.
Okay.
And that's why I bought the statue, because I was like, oh, it's a good reminder, you know, like a world leader is doing this. And I feel like a lot of really like top people, they know how to do this thing, which is like defeat their doubt and just do it, no matter how else they get there.
Right.
Like think about Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, he was a yogi. Actually, I delete Elon Musk because I don't know if he does anything to.
I think his mind is very differently wired.
Yeah.
In that sense, like, what did he say he has?
Asperger's.
Yeah, like I wonder if
That's more
those
like
are
an obsessive state over one.
Yeah,
topic.
so you already have.
You don't need to delete your mind. You're just like you're obsessed with that one thing. Like you gotta. Okay, yeah, true.
He's wired differently.
But like Joe Rogan, big into meditation, Jocko Willink, like they have some practice of like clearing the mind. Yeah, I think that's like the big secret that we're all missing out on.
Yeah.
But it's also like the easiest thing to do. No, sorry. It's the easiest thing to do, but it's the most difficult thing to do because like nobody's ever really experienced. No, we've experienced it, but it's like because you're so ruled by mind, you need somebody to be like, oh, that was that.
I think, maybe it's the
need a good
easiest thing
guide
to
or-
do, but hardest thing to start.
True. Because you don't even know what it is you're feeling for.
Yeah. And your mind is probably already doubting it, guys, because it's
Exactly.
all
Yeah, you're like, oh,
mystical
that probably
and,
wasn't it.
and all that weird stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's why you need a good guide. But again, it's like this could be a really different world.
Yeah, sure. Well, we don't know what that world could entail. Maybe
That's
we get to
true.
that point, but I don't know.
You think so? You think one day?
Are we evolving into that kind of state? I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
We were talking about that. COVID cough. Not really a COVID cough. We were talking about that in the car. Like, what would our world look like by like 50 years from now? Because they say like, well, Elon Musk is projecting by 2030 we're going to be going to Mars, like thousands of ships with 100 people per ship heading there. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He said like we need like 1 million people or something to start an actual colony.
Yeah, like a proper colony. Yeah.
Yeah, because they
makes
need
sense.
like the jobs they need to like be able to do stuff. So that's 10 years from now. That's actually not even. That's 8 years from now. So what is the world gonna look like in 50 years? You know, by 2050, they believe that. Like I don't believe in doomsdays, but they say that by 2050, if we don't curb carbon emission now, it's game over. 2050. But like, what does that mean, really? You know what I mean?
I don't think so. I think we try to always find solutions.
We will
seem
definitely
to-
always find solutions. But so 2050, if that's your projected point, that is how many years from now? 28 years from now?
Yeah.
So that's not even 50 years. What is 50 years going to look like? That'd be so trippy, right? Like,
Well, we'll be having hopefully a moon base and a Mars base. So that we
within
can
10
go
years,
to.
though. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. No, like it'll be more. I just don't think it's gonna be like when the planes came out. It was not like easy for everyone to get on.
I was like rudimentary.
Yeah.
Like, not what it's not sophisticated like today.
Yeah, not consumer friendly.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
today.
yeah. It's not. It was like specialty travel.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
feel
now
like that.
anyone could just like go on a plane ride, especially even in America. It's super cheap there.
Yeah.
I can't remember who's saying this, but you can like. Actually, I think it's Europe. If you live in Europe, you can live in a different country. Although technically, Europe's very small. Like going from like Paris to like London.
That's the
not
EU.
that
Yeah.
long.
Yeah, that was with the EU thing, right?
Yeah. But what they said is like you can theoretically. I think people do it. Actually, they drive to the airport every morning, fly, go to their job, fly back home at night. Like they can live in different countries. Yeah, we were talking to somebody who lived there, and they were like, "Yeah, it's very common for people because it's not that expensive to like just take a, especially if you have a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
You could like work in a different country and then head back." So okay, that all to be said, that space like not space travel, sorry, flight is so commercial now, but in the beginning it was so niche. Like not everyone flew.
Yeah.
So like, what would space travel look like in 50 years? Are we just like making commercial missions to?
Yeah, that's his plan. His whole idea is to make it that it would only cost like a plane ticket.
That'd be so intense. But also from that perspective, you'd need to do something, especially if it's a long flight. You'd need to do something that allowed people to like be sedated.
Yeah, that's the whole what's going on right now. They're studying long term in space, what it does to the body, long term isolation, because you're in a enclosed place. So what does that do to the mind or the brain? Like
There's so many parallels from this conversation towards my experience with COVID. I'm like stopping all of them, but keep going. Yeah.
Like they're running the studies right now on all these sort of things, trying to figure out like what's possible, and I guess at certain points, do we need to do the whole the sleep stuff like through the journey?
You have to, because like who would do 6 months in a spaceship? That, like, not who would do it, because you have astronauts doing it, but what I mean is how could you get everyone to do it?
Yeah, and you got to think about it. Like we forget we have such a like you just go outside, breathe fresh air, and just go over. Like you have a lot of freedom, right? There's no claustrophobia. So it's like in that thing you're stuck.
Well, actually, you know what's actually trippy? You were talking about claustrophobia. You know what's really trippy? It's all about relative perspective. Because what do you mean by claustrophobia? Because it's all about size.
Sure.
Because technically, we can't escape this Earth.
No, yeah.
No, but like really think about that. It's like, at what point psychologically are you considered not claustrophobic? Is it 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers?
True, yeah.
How many kilometers do you need to not feel claustrophobic?
Right. Because even being in a car could be claustrophobic too. Some people, I guess.
Right? So it's like, it's all relative.
Yes.
So is the size of the Earth make you feel claustrophobic? You know what I'm saying? It's
I do.
Claustrophobia is like, it's an illusion.
No, I understand that. It is, of course, it is an illusion thing.
Yeah, because it's not an idea.
Yeah.
No, but like, what if they do a study and they're just like, if we just make the ship 21 kilometers, nobody gets claustrophobic.
Or is this like a pill to not get claustrophobic?
Oh, true. Yeah, all right, that's more likely. Yeah. Yeah, we're just doing that now. Like, but it's so funny. Like with the pill you're talking about, and like, I drank like a little bit of Red Bull. Those are magic of our time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How like the Vikings, I was telling you before that they'd be like hopped up on mushrooms and like crystal meth, like natural forms of it, and like just go to battle. And they'd be like, how come they don't feel pain? But it's like, no, you're hopped up on drugs, you don't feel pain, bro.
Yeah. You're just
We've created,
you'll feel it after the fact, but not.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So
that's why I like that scene, because when they took over that village, and then it cut to that scene where they were all like limping and all cut up, they're tying up their bandages.
So true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. Because when they were like battling, it was like hardcore.
Yeah.
The adrenaline's going, like all this stuff.
And then you saw like people do get hurt, and you're gonna lose a limb, or you're like you're gonna get stabbed. This is gonna happen.
But it also makes you wonder, like those high endurance athletes, like you can push the body really far. Your mind breaks way before your body breaks. You know, it's especially like during jiu-jitsu. Like this past Saturday, I pushed it really hard because I was like, okay, I'm going to go for the sub. Remember, I came home and I was like, oh, my whole body's hurting. But like in that moment, I didn't feel any pain. It was only after the fact where I was like, really sore. But in doing that, you can see people who are not experienced in like going hard with the jiu-jitsu, they give up. But they've mentally given up. It has nothing to do with their physicality.
No, right.
I've watched them just like one of my partners was like, he was just tired. And he's like, oh, I'm done. He like made some excuse like, oh, I pulled my neck. I'm like, dude, I literally have pulled my neck during jiu-jitsu and I just like rub it out. I'm just like, all right, it's fine. We're going to keep rolling. It's not going to break.
Right.
You know? And like, it's just a mind state.
Yes.
So how much further could you push the body if you just killed the mind? Like we were talking about, it's like an imprisonment of the mind. Your mind gets too involved and it's like, I can't do this. Oh man, I'm too tired. Blah, blah, blah. And you start spiraling.
Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, you see that a lot in the Olympics. You can see like how much someone pushes themselves and then how much someone, if they were affected by or something happened, and how much they're battling, I guess, their own mind if they should do it or not do it. Like,
ooh, interesting.
Like the fear of failing again.
Yeah, for sure.
And that happens.
Doubt.
Yeah. And I see a bunch of different things too. Even I saw like the F1 like driving racing. That can happen too, where it's like if you...
Oh, you heard the dog outside. Sorry, guys. they're having a conversation. All right, so we cut because Athena was having like a conversation with another dog outside. You were saying that people...
So like even with F1 racing, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. Like when you're driving at very high speeds, you're breaking everything that's normal, right? Like you're putting yourself at risk here.
Right, okay.
But then when you do see a crash happen, or like flashes beside you, that can affect. There are some drivers that affected them, where I can't drive like this again anymore. Like it actually put fear in them, right? Where like if no one has seen the crash, or if you hadn't seen the crash, right, you'd still be doing the same thing. Your mind wasn't affected by, like, it added on the fear. Yeah, totally. And it impedes your action. Yeah, totally. I agree. Your performance. Yeah, I totally agree. And like, this goes back to the whole, we're ruled by our minds thing. If you could shut that off, then you're able to better perform. Actually, I think that's probably what I like the most about jiu-jitsu as compared to all the other martial arts, because like you can practice jiu-jitsu full blast without hurting another person. Right? You can't do that with arnis. Like if I was going to hit you with a stick, it's game over. Yeah. If I was going to punch you like boxing, it's game over if I hit you in the face. But like you can go endless rounds without hurting one another. Right. Of course your muscles be taxed like how I was, but like when it's like game over, you just start again, right? And I think the thing I like is it's mental training. It has nothing to do with my performance. Like if I get subbed, if I sub someone else, it's like whatever. It's more about, can you learn how to turn off your mind when it's telling you to stop? Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like, and I think that is what, again, it goes back to like, I think we need to learn that as like, I think that should be fundamental. Because you can translate that to like so many other things. It's like, oh, I don't feel like doing this today. True. But you're just like, oh, shut off your mind. You've done it before. You can do it again. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or like, I hate needles. Okay, but you have to get a needle. Okay, just shut off your mind. You've been here before. Yeah. You know how to do this. In some ways, you have to be either you have a good person that can lead you through that. But not many people know that's even what they're doing. No, yeah. Which is crazy. It's like, I'm surrounded by all these people practicing, and like, nobody really does that. Because that's more of an esoteric thing. Like, or you have to have a stronger inner mind. Yeah. Because you're really competing with your own you're talking to yourself out of it, right?
Yes.
So it's like,
yeah. But you know what? That wasn't even actually, to circle back, jiu-jitsu allows me to practice that, but that's not where I built that skill. It was from my first martial arts, which is like the definition of it is inner power. And like there were some classes, the whole idea was just to break your mind. So like we would do these like certain forms, and as we're like a very basic one where we're just like stepping forward. Like so you take one step forward and then you hold that position, take another step forward. But as you're holding the position, the instructor, at least our instructor, was like hitting us with a stick or like trying to distract us, like punching us, right? And it was like to condition the mind to be like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to just step forward. And there's all these obstacles, but it's fine. I'm going to step forward over and over and over. And like, can you kill that doubt in your mind? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, right. Well, I guess you have to have some sort of training.
But that's like bananas training. Like who's gonna do that?
Yeah.
That's a very like even the highest point is this thing we used to do is like shinai, right? You'd hit the person as hard as you could with a bamboo katana across their back. Basically like whipping. Like literally every time I see whipping scenes, I'm like, I know what that's like. But you like it's not for everyone. Even for me. Like that is one practice. I did it one time. I was like, nah, I'm good. Like I could not get over the fear of it. I know I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to get a crazy bruise. But like it was the idea that I was being whipped was too much for me. But that was like mental training.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But again, who does that? Maybe that's the thing. It's like to truly break the mind, you have to do it in combat because combat is our biggest obstacle. It's easy to meditate if you're in like, you have a room, put couches down, you have a cushion, light some incense. Who wouldn't meditate during that?
Yeah.
But can you meditate while somebody's slapping you across the face? That's really what we're doing with that very basic form where you take a step forward, he's hitting you with a stick. It's like, can you meditate in that moment?
Right. With the distractions. Yeah.
And but that's why I can do it now. Like I've noticed my demeanor in like jiu-jitsu is very much drill oriented, which is like I just go. But that's from my first black belt where they were just like, why are you talking? Go. Why are you talking? Go. No matter how tired you got. Like my legs would literally buckle because it was too tired from doing the same move over and over. But it's like, go. Why'd you stop?
Right.
But how many people can do that?
Yeah.
How many people want to do that?
Yeah.
But that's the only way to get to that point of like, oh, this is what no mind feels like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We can all do no mind and like mannequin. We're playing basketball. Yeah, you feel no mind. But can you achieve no mind when it's very difficult?
Yeah. True.
Yeah. And I feel like that's the only way to unshackle the elephant's like chain.
The doubts.
The doubts, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like we can all have no doubt when there's nothing to doubt. But can you still have no doubt when there's a lot of things you're doubting? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're trying to, yeah. I get what you're saying, yeah. When there's a lot of stuff going around you, can you still control your mind?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's only like one level of it. Like Navy SEALs do some craziness, right? Like I read like a lot of Navy SEAL people and like listen to their stories because they fascinate me. It's like they're the epitome of being able to kill their mind.
Right.
Because they're like some of their training is I forgot what the exact term was, but what they make you do is they make you drown. So like you're bobbing up and down in the water and your objective is to drown and then they save you. But I don't know if I would do that.
Yeah.
But your objective is to drown.
But that's the thing. I think those are the skill levels they need.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like for that kind of field of work, you need to be able to do these things. So if you're not going to do it, then it's not for you.
So maybe the answer is that it's not meant for everyone.
I think so. I don't think it's meant for everyone.
So when I say like, oh, it'd be amazing if everyone in this world could just do this one thing, it's like easier said than done.
Yeah, because
we're all not.
Yeah, because it'll be for some and won't be for others.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think that's why it's only a few people that tend to change the world.
Yeah, fair point. Wow, see the power of discourse. I had this idealistic belief, like if everyone just could, but then within this one conversation through discourse, you and I like changed my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, because you're right. Not everyone can do it.
Mm.
And the power to change your mind is because you're not tethered to your self-identity as your idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good lesson. Anything else about the Northman before I go into the craziness that is COVID?
No.
No, you're good.
That's enough for Northman.
It's weird that we like took that one movie, we just made this whole chain of like esoteric thoughts, and then we're like, okay, well, that idea's done.
But the thing is, yeah, Northman is much more of a simpler movie than we just said.
It is. But there's so many like things you can learn from it.
But that's the thing. Because it's artistic, these are a lot of things that you can break down from it. Yes.
Yes. Speaking of artistic, one scene is in the very beginning. You kind of have to watch the movie, but like they acted like wolves and they were like eating and they were like in front of the fire. And then you said, hey, did you catch that they were just sitting there? And I'm like, yeah, that was an artistic depiction to show you that they probably just took drugs and they were going through that whole acting like a wolf scene in their head. Which I'm actually a huge fan of but that's also dangerous practice because you can break your mind if you go too far down the rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can't go back.
There's that too, right?
Yeah, that's true. All right, enough about that. All right, so the craziness of COVID was not bad at all. I really thought that it would have presented in a much more obvious way. Like at first, I thought I was just really tired from like too much jiu-jitsu because that week I had gone 4 days in a row. And then I was like, ooh, I'm not feeling good. So I took 1 day off. And then on that one day, the next day, like I had like cold sweats at night. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm sick. I was like, I hope this isn't COVID. So I did the test. And then when it came out positive, I was like, oh, this was COVID, right? So I think that, well, one thing you mentioned is like we've become like the pariahs of society. Like we've become the lepers, you know? And like,
because anyone who has it.
Yeah, right. I've actually noticed that my own, like the way people have treated me after knowing I had COVID, they're kind of like wary.
Well, yeah. I feel like that will be the jump reaction, or I forgot the word, but it's like
knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, knee-jerk. Yeah, that'll be the reaction like that. But then they keep seeing you, and you're acting normal again.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll start becoming.
That's why I have to keep telling everyone. I was like, "Oh, I honestly didn't think I had COVID, and like, I didn't even have a cough. Like the cough that you heard is like I've had that for a while. It's just like some other issue. It's not COVID related. There was really nothing during that. Like it was just muscle soreness and brain fog. I did feel the brain fog that they were talking about, and like it did linger for like maybe a good 2 weeks after.
2 weeks after?
Yeah, like I still felt it recently. But what's weird is going back to jiu-jitsu after like my quarantine was over and I tested negative, it kind of lifted the fog. And then that really made me think like, how much does our body really need physical exercise to like get rid of things? You know, something about my knee, like because of COVID, I couldn't do any jiu-jitsu, and then my knee started to swell up. Not swell up, sorry, it started to bruise. And then I went back to jiu-jitsu, and then the next day, it was gone. It was like fully healed. I was like, oh, that's really weird. But I think it's because I got the blood flow going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it made me think like we really, like sedentary lifestyle is not very good for our bodies.
Yeah, not what we were designed for.
It's not. If you look at like, to go back to Northman, it's like they were doing like farming, doing like a lot of walking. Like,
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was a very physical life, and we've built up physical bodies well, we have physical bodies, but like our bodies were made for physical endeavors for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's only now through modernity that we're just sitting in front of computers.
Yes. We're becoming more, sedentary,
Yeah, right?
lifestyle. Yeah.
And it almost feels like that made it worse for me,
Yeah.
having COVID, because it's almost like, why don't I just move? Like, why don't I just like help? People are like, oh, you should help your body heal by just resting, but it's like,
That's the thing. So I would agree with you. Yeah, it's probably, even if you are sick, it's probably better to just go outside and go for a walk.
yeah, get some fresh
But the
air.
rules are
Not to do that.
stay home for 5 days,
Yeah, right? Yeah, crazy.
which is not a normal thing for a person to do, right? It's not.
Yeah. Especially go from like heavy activity, which I was doing, and then zero activity. It was really weird for me.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I could feel like my mind was getting really restless.
yeah,
And like I was getting too not energetic, but like agitated.
yeah,
Like I had so much energy, I didn't know what to do with it.
yeah.
Like by the end, when I was able to go back to jiu-jitsu, Tara was like, you should go back to jiu-jitsu because I'm like bottled up all this energy I didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why they put kids into a lot of programs
right. Yeah.
so that they can
expel their energy.
expel their energy. Yeah,
Yes. And I felt like, even because we've known each other since we were like super young, and I think that like I feel like I was always running around. Remember when we'd hang out at my house and I'd just go for a bike ride?
yeah.
Stuff like that. That's so random.
Yeah,
Or like
yeah.
we'd be hanging out in your garage and then I'd start kicking the soccer ball around. I feel like I just naturally have this like energy,
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like to bottle that up was very psychologically damaging.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, I think it goes for a lot of people. Like, it's just not a good state to do that. Like,
No, yeah.
But again, you're lucky enough. It's just 5 days. Before it was 14 days.
So that
Imagine that.
totally, and that's what I want to get to about the traveling, because we were like, how do you travel to Mars? And you're like, you have to like put them unconscious or whatever. Like that would be psychologically damaging on a trip. Like to do 5 days in this apartment was like bananas to me, because I was like, what am I going to do? I started playing video games again and like watching movies. Like I got so much time. Read like a book a day because I was like, what am I going to do with all this time? And like the people who had to go through the beginning of COVID, where it wasn't just 2 weeks, it was like everything's locked down. You can't mix households. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then we were like, those people who were stuck in their apartment, they would like buy pets or whatever because like they were alone all the time. It's like, what was that like for those people? I couldn't even
there
imagine.
there was an increase in pet buying. Yeah.
Yeah. And like they said like suicide rates went up. It was like a year of like,
Yeah. Like that. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At the apex of COVID. Which is so true. You know what I noticed my mind was doing? It was going through like a weird depression of like almost like a crisis of what am I doing with my life? You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
it's almost like like an existential crisis it was going through. And then I went to jiu-jitsu, came home, and then it lifted, which was so weird for me. I was like, I was going through like this really weird, like, oh, nothing, like, what is the point? Nothing matters. Like all these like negative spiral thoughts. And then I was bringing Athena out for a walk the next day, and I was like, oh, I feel totally like none of those thoughts entered my mind. It's like expelling that energy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's why I wonder sometimes, like people who are depressed is like, maybe they're just not doing anything. Like, do they know what it is to have fun?
Well, that's why they're depressed.
That's exactly what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. It's almost like, but I feel like I'm dumbing this down.
No,
but
yeah.
I feel like if I knew somebody who's depressed and they're like, hey man, just go fix them, I would just play with them. I would just be like, hey, you want to go watch the movie? No, I don't want to go. All right, we'll just chill here. What's on TV? You just spend time. I feel like I watched this interview with Schoolboy Q, and he was super depressed. He was going through like this depression, it sounded very similar to what I was going through. And he was saying that all he was doing was like wake up, watch Sports Center, take a phone call, go to the studio, record a song, come back home, do it all over again. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Like he was just very isolated. He was nervous. He's like, oh, I'm famous now. People, stuff like that. And then he picked up golf. And then when he started golfing, he's like, oh, we need community and activity. It's like in this golfing, you started meeting a bunch of other people. And then like you're also outside all the time. And he's like, my depression went away. And I'm like, I think that's because depression at the end of the day is like a mental thing, right? Of course, there's a chemical imbalance, but like the actual, like,
there's different kinds of depression, right? So.
Okay, true. Yeah. Okay.
So in that sense, like maybe some people require the physical like thing or like being around other people. Like there's different.
Right. Okay. As you were saying,
different
like,
levels to this.
There's like depression where it's like genetic depression. It's like you're not actually producing this chemical compound. Okay. So I don't think that's what he had because he said he lifted it, and it sounds more like a mental kind of depression, which is what I went through too. But like, if those were the two simple things. Just like going out, like being active and being social.
Yep.
Is like, how much could we also fix if we just were like more active, more social? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like these like, because it feels like you build depression by running away from what you do naturally as a human being, right? Like isolation, you're staying inside all day, speak to no one.
Yeah.
Because that's what depression is, right? You're like, you're reclusive. But if you just did the things that, made us human beings, you'd probably just kick yourself out of it. Maybe, I don't know.
I think it depends on, this is what I'm saying, it depends on the type of depression and the type of person that they are, right? There are people that, say the ones who are like, for instance, like people that just game all day, like stream all day. Their life, or they're more of a person that likes to be inside.
But technically, they're still building community.
No. There's still community being built, but they knew how to use it within the internet world, right?
Right, okay.
If you're not used to any of those sort of things, all this stuff, staying at home 14 days, 5 days, whatever it was, for a majority of the people are not used to this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So a lot of them did, like when you were saying like, what about life and stuff, it's like a lot of people realize that, wait, they don't have to work as hard. Like, why do... Like,
that's true. That is.
I can be more of a mom. Let me not work. I'll be more of a mom at home or something like that.
That is something that did happen.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of career shifts during COVID. Because of the time. You had the time. Just like I was going, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, It's because you had time to like think about it.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, nothing has changed since the beginning.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I think that it's really weird that something that originated from another part of the world actually made it to this apartment and actually affected us here. Like me and Tara got it, you didn't get it, but it's like, it was a weird feeling to also get COVID because it was like, this is the thing that they were talking about for years. 2 whole years we were trying to avoid and ended up getting it. And it's like
well, there were at this point, I think with the Omicron variant and whatever the next variant to come, there's no way to necessarily stop it from everyone getting it.
For sure. But isn't that weird that like a pandemic, like you hear about it on the news and you're like, oh, there's this weird thing that's happening in China. Oh, it's spread to this country. Oh, it's spread to this country. And then full on world lockdown. We're all freaking out.
Yeah.
You get it. And it's like, oh, this thing was real the whole time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like like small decisions can have big ramifications. We don't know who the first person was to get COVID.
Yeah.
But like, look what happened. Everyone's going to get it now. You do your best to mitigate. Maybe that's why, because I'm vaccinated, that's probably why it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Very likely. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, it is weird to think that this thing that it's almost like dying. Right? No, think about it, right? Like you hear about death, you hear about death, you hear about
True.
death. And it's
Right,
time
right,
for you to
right.
die, and you're like, it was real.
Yeah.
Oh, we're actually going to die. You know what I'm saying? Like COVID was just this thing we were trying to avoid. People were getting it, just like people who died.
Yeah.
But then when death's at your door, you're kind of like, oh, this is real. This is a
Yeah.
real thing.
Yeah. Right.
Weird, right? Like, yeah. But that all being said, it wasn't bad at all. So, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Final thing. Anything else about COVID that you want to?
Yeah, I feel like this variant is very widely spread. Where I think people don't even know they have it.
Oh yeah, that was actually the one thing, because we were trying to figure out where I got it from, and then I was like, because nobody was like, oh, I had COVID. I think I was the first person to be like, I have COVID at jiu-jitsu, because it's a
Probably
very close
the only
contact, right?
person that told the truth. Like,
Yeah, true, yeah, for sure. They just didn't come, and then we're like, oh, that guy hadn't been here for 2 weeks. It's like,
but
oh,
they
because
didn't know they had it, right? Like,
so that was the thing in the change room. Like some guys are like, oh, I was really tired like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, dude, you probably gave me COVID. Because like I don't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
That involves close contact.
Outside of other people. Yeah.
Like I don't even take the TTC, so it's like
Yeah.
I really, the only place I could have gotten it was there, and like it's just funny because like it's so mild now that they were all just like, and one guy was like, I'm a little tired today, and I was like, bro, you probably got COVID. You know what I mean? But like, because that's how it presents. It's like it's very. I really wouldn't have thought I had COVID if I didn't test.
Right.
I would have been like, oh, I feel a little off. Like Tara's version was even milder than mine. She didn't even like. I was getting like night sweats. I was like kind of cold at night, but she didn't have any of that. You know, it's like, yeah.
She's also boosted, right?
That's true too. I'm not boosted, so I was thinking that too. Like maybe that's why I had the night sweats. So, but yeah, nothing too bad. I did want to say though that a lot of the predictions that were made prior to COVID, or like during COVID, like if you go back to our podcast, yeah, they're not going to happen. It's like UBI is not going to be a thing.
These are predictions you made, right?
Yeah. And like the upcoming economic recession, it's happening, but we don't focus on it because of like other things like the war in Ukraine and stuff. But we were talking about this earlier in the day. The gas prices are really not associated with the war.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
like a very
not like
a tiny bit, but
not
not
directly. Yeah.
It's not like, oh, why is it 82? Oh, it's the war. That's not actually why. You were saying it's because now that COVID's over, they didn't drill as much during COVID,
Yeah.
and then now the demand is high again.
Didn't the
but,
gas prices go down during COVID?
I don't know.
Because of
I wasn't driving, so
I think it was a bit lower during COVID, just because there was an abundance of it. Because they
Right,
all
that makes
drilled.
sense.
They were drilled more, right? Then COVID happened. So then now they stopped the drilling for those years.
right.
And then now we're back out and driving again. And so we need
Increased
to,
demand
we have to
equals increased price.
you have to drill for more oil. So that's why they need to increase price, because the supply was short.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think like one thing the UBI thing, that's definitely not going to happen. Because if they didn't keep it during COVID, like post-COVID, they're not going to keep it.
Yeah, the thing with I still feel like U.S. was closest by doing something like a UBI.
Yeah, with New York, right? Giving everyone.
No, not like that. I mean, like what I mean by that was
stimulus check.
Yeah, I would say the stimulus check.
True, because
what they did was generally what a UBI is.
Because we had CERB, so it's
Ours
like you
was
had to be a part of.
Ours was part of. Normally, you don't have a job, right? That's who's getting it. Not
for
Canada.
Yeah, but you had to also have been affected by COVID. It's not that you don't have a job. It's like you lost your job because of COVID, and you can't go back to work because of COVID.
Right. No. Yeah. Exactly. Or unemployed, right? Or like through employment insurance kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay,
it's a part of EI. But over in America, everyone got the check.
Right.
Every single American.
But it's funny, like, I was really optimistic for it, and it just didn't materialize. And because it didn't materialize, like you had your closest example of it, I can't see it materializing in the future. Because like the time was perfect for it, but it's like, no, we just quickly forget. I feel like we quickly forget things as a species. Like we jump from COVID to war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
To what's going to be the next thing, you know? Like, who knows? Like I feel like the news cycle's already done for this war in Ukraine. Like I haven't heard anything about it.
I'm not really paying as much attention.
But even if we don't pay attention to it, it still would have came up in our social media feeds because it's breaking news. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, do you see this
I still see it on there.
But it's not like you see it on there, but it's not as like panic driven when it first
We got
started.
used to it. It's been a month of this.
No, about COVID though, it was like
COVID was up and downs of fear of.
That's right. Yeah.
Where. I mean, there's only so much about war that we can keep hearing
unless
about.
Putin decides to like drop a nuke.
Like,
then we're like, oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
then
now we're
it's
gonna pay attention again.
Exactly. It has to be something different, right? So
True. Yeah, because with COVID, you're tuning every day because you'd have like a daily address.
Yeah.
Be like, this is what we're doing now. So you're like kind of holding your breath every time.
Because in the beginning there was no CERB, so CERB came later.
Right.
The announcement of CERB, then the announcement of this thing.
How it could help
to
us.
help businesses.
That was a very anxious
then doing
time.
lockdowns or all that kind of stuff. It was like a continuous things that were happening throughout every couple of weeks or something, where
right
the news of this war in Ukraine, it was like a lot of it there during the first couple of weeks. Then, like it was slowing down. The war was technically slowing down.
Right.
It's been a month, the same kind of thing. Actually, it's not even the same as what the beginning was. It's like they're out of Kyiv, right? Like Russia is not even like at Kyiv anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
They backed out, and they're only focusing on like the border regions.
Oh.
So it's like that's why it slowed down.
Oh.
It's also like it kind of like Russia couldn't do it.
Right.
They couldn't take the capital.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
Either they're they're going to focus on the border states, and
then he's like, give me more fear, because the fear like died. It's like, oh, he like backed off. It's like we're not going to report it anymore. Like, you know what I mean? It's like
it's still being reported, but like,
but
it's not like
not severe, like panic.
Yeah, not unless he uses a nuke, unless he does something that is different, something vastly different.
Right. Yeah. Weird. We're so like news. I think that's the biggest thing that COVID really woke us all up to was like how controlled we are by the media, how much the media is distorted, how much facts are not in like play here. Like the speed with which we need an answer is not the speed with which the news will give it to you. You know what I'm saying? It's like tell us what's going on with COVID. They can't give you that answer. Like it really showed you that, everything's a work in progress. You know what I'm saying? And like nothing should be taken as final fact. Because a lot of stuff that they thought was not true in the beginning turned out to be true. But a lot of those people, like boosters, for example.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like a bunch of like different things, right? Like, oh, it's gonna wane. You're gonna have zero protection against COVID, so you need your booster. And then it's like, but people are still getting COVID.
But it's not supposed to stop getting COVID, though, right?
Like to protect you, right? But the messaging was, remember, it's like, get your shot, save a life. You remember that in the beginning? That's why I was such a proponent of the booster, of the shots, because it's like, I'm not doing it for me.
Yeah.
I'm protect. No, how? Right?
No. Save a life, or save your life.
Others' lives. Like I'm doing this for. There's a huge campaign. Like I'm doing this for.
Yeah,
my mom
I
and
remember
dad.
that. Yeah,
I'm doing this for.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing this for. That's what this is our shot. The T-shirts we got.
Oh yeah.
That's what that was about. It was like I'm doing this for. That's what I bought into. I was like, oh, it's going to protect us. And they found out like, oh, you can still pass it even though you have the vaccine.
Yeah.
So what's the point?
Right.
You know, it and then the narrative switched. Oh, it's actually to protect you.
Yeah.
So see what I mean? It's like we just kept shifting things. It's like I feel like we're going to come out of this thing being more skeptical about the news, which is not a good thing either.
Not a good thing, yeah. I think that the news was not at fault with that either, though, right? They were reporting on based on what.
But that's what I mean. It's like it can't.
They were reporting based on what was told to them at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But we wanted the answer faster than the news could give us the answer.
Right.
And that's why I mean about like.
But that's why it's more about science. Like we don't know.
Right. But then who's
until
doing
we
the
know.
science? But who's doing the science, right? It's like, remember the white papers thing that came out?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, a scientist did this. Yeah, but there's different levels of science.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you're like, oh my God, dude, we gotta like think about.
But that's what a regular person has to be a bit more knowledgeable.
But that could technically be the same as how I was saying, like, oh, people should just understand like yoga, meditation, Zen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, but that's not for everyone.
That's not.
And like, we're like, yeah, the regular person should be knowledgeable. It's like, actually, that's what the book was talking about too. It's like when you read financial news, like it's going through the different styles of news, and it was saying like the financial news, you can't distill the actions of a company down to a financial statement and a paragraph. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you need the full information. You also have to understand how business works, how finance works. But like, there's so many facets to that that not everyone can pay attention to that.
Yeah.
But that's just like COVID. It's like, dude, scientists say, yeah, but you got that from a white paper. What's a white paper? Oh,
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what like a lot of the stocks are very. The way those stocks work is also very emotionally driven too, right? Like.
but right, exactly, yeah, totally. And like they have, because I took economics in school too, as like my class, and they're talking about stock markets, and like you have these like the way it should move, right? Like you have these like theories. It's like, oh, if like theoretically, because it's doing so well, the stock price should go up, but then it goes down. You're like, well, that makes no sense, right? Because it is more emotionally driven than it is logically driven. Because if it was with logic, our mathematics would work every time, but our emotions are stronger than our.
Like how all of a sudden, well they have less subscribers this year for Netflix.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
less new subscribers. Stock plummeted. But a lot of their stuff that they have out there is really good, so they're still gonna get subscribers. It's just it's not like they didn't lose. They still have a ton of subscribers.
Right. It's too short-term thinking.
Yeah, very much.
You know,
so.
it's like the best example is like Bitcoin. Actually, you know what came out of COVID too? The metaverse and Bitcoin. And then now that we're getting out of COVID, it's like, what is the longevity of these things anymore? I don't know. Yeah.
The diehards will be there.
Yeah, the diehards, but like, will it? Like, you know, some aspect of it, like Zoom.
I think some
received,
aspects
like,
will work. I think NFTs were a
What is
fad.
that? Yeah,
Like,
we're a fad, dude. You know, there's a meme that's going around. It's like me smiling at the screenshot of the NFT I just took. Because it's like you could just screenshot
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
an NFT. Like, what?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. And then the big trick for that is you have to pay a publishing fee to get your NFT on the server, which is like $70. Because I know somebody who did it. And they're like, yeah, but this NFT could be worth billions. But I'm like, but how many people are submitting NFTs to the server?
Yeah, then again, it just becomes like my drawing that I do. And like Picasso paintings. I'm like, what do you mean? It's not going to be the same.
Exactly. Yeah. Why don't you just? Yeah. Exactly. Like theoretically, you could do something on Paint and just put it up as an NFT and be like, hey guys, I got more NFTs.
Yeah.
But it's like you need perceptual purchasing. You need people to believe that thing's important. But if every Joe Schmo is doing it, it's like nobody's gonna care about freaking NFTs. And again, screenshot. Like what? Yeah. Okay, so final thing. I was trying to get to this before, but I think that so I beat Chrono Cross while I had COVID, and I was thinking about the level of the evolution towards simplicity. You know, like video games back then, like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8. We're talking about this, like you need to buy the guidebook. Like I would have never knew, like as I'm playing the game, they never tell you where to go.
Yeah.
But then I'm playing the game with a walkthrough and then I know where to go. And some things were not even labeled on the map. So it's like, but then now if you look at video games today, it's like they have waypoints, they have like objective markers.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Yeah, it's all even in the reviewing process. Like if it's not that easy to get around something wrong with the waypoints, you're gonna get like demarked on that kind of stuff.
Right. It was what was the example? Uncharted. They
Yeah.
they they tried to make the UX designers made it in a way that you think you're solving the problem, or you're like, oh, I should go in this direction. But it's like, no, we actually made the UX to force you down that path.
Yeah, that's in a way controlling the mind.
It is controlling the mind because you think you're solving the problem, but it's like, no, we actually led you in that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
Which goes into like determinism, free will, all that stuff. But but the actual video games that were created back then were like real open world. And
Right.
what I wanted to say was like, they don't make them like they used to. They really don't. Like that I think the reason why the nostalgia was there for all these old games is because you spent thousands of hours playing the game.
I wonder if it's there not in necessarily in the big games anymore, like the big blockbuster, but maybe in like the indie games.
Ooh,
The
interesting.
ones that
Okay.
are more who fell in love with those types of games and want to make something similar to that.
But like
But they become
niche.
a very niche
Yeah.
thing, and
the mass market appeal's not there.
it's not appeal for the mass market anymore. Yeah.
I don't know if that's like, I don't know if it's better to have games like
Well, because we've gone into this world of
simplicity
everything's
and like at
Yeah.
your fingertips.
no. It's like what's that they say, like the participation award, right? So
Oh,
it's-
participation trophies.
we're
yeah,
in that
yeah.
world, right?
Facts. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because as I was playing the game, I'm like, I haven't played an open world game. Like when I was playing these games as a kid,
Yeah.
like Chrono Cross, Final Fantasy 7, I was like, oh man, these games are going to be amazing when they take this concept but build a bigger world, right? But as I get older and I play like the different iterations, like Final Fantasy 7, the first game, and then Final Fantasy 7, the remake,
Yeah.
they're completely different games. Like the Final Fantasy 7, the remake is just like today's games where it's like, here's the waypoint, run to it, you know? And like, I feel like open world is really dead. There's no such thing as open world anymore. You know?
Right.
What do you think?
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Like even Witcher is like closest open world, but that's like, you still have a waypoint.
Yeah. There's still a lot of things to do, but you can always mark them on the map.
Exactly. And I feel like it's like we'll never get that again because a lot of people would quit the game.
Yeah.
If you had to play Witcher with no waypoint, like how would you play the game?
But yeah,
How would you know what the storyline is?
yeah. Well, yeah. They're not going to make those games anymore because it's not going to be as appealing to the general public. So it's not a money maker. So we've gone in this direction now. Right.
Right. Actually, you know, that sparked an idea too. It's like a lot of these games that I played now, out of the three I named, when I was younger, the only one I ever beat was Final Fantasy VIII, and that to me felt like an achievement. But I also did technically play with the walkthrough back then. But like,
But at least you're reading. There's so many different things that.
but I meant like abandon. Like
Right.
a lot, those two other games, like two out of the three games I abandoned, right? So like maybe now it's better because at least you get to the very end.
Even then, I don't think a lot of people finish the games though.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
True, because Witcher's really long.
Yeah. Like it took me a while to. Okay, I'll come back now. I'll come back now.
What was that other one, the samurai game you played as well?
You haven't finished it yet.
You haven't finished that?
Ghost of
You
Tsushima.
haven't beat it?
No.
Oh, so you're right. Then
Yeah.
a lot of these games do get abandoned.
Yeah, I think I don't remember the number. I'm just saying it on the top of my head, but I believe it was something like 30% or very less than that actually finished the game.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad though, because you're like what is like the people that create the game? It's like put a lot of work into this. It's sad.
Yeah, but you bought the game now, right?
That's true.
It's up
Yeah,
to
that's
the person who bought it, up to them to finish it. But it's generally like it's probably like something like that. 30% actually finish the game.
I guess it's sort of like people who buy books too. It's like who actually finishes. Like there's that meme where it's like my old books looking at my new books that I just purchased, even though I didn't finish my old books.
Yeah,
And it's like
35%. 35% of players finish a game.
Can you find if there's a percentage?
This is specifically for PC, but I think it's general.
Can you find if there's a percentage of how many people finish books? Because books were kind of like the video games of the past, you know?
Right.
But the thing is, you had no choice in the book. So it's like you just kept going down the path.
I can't find that specific one.
Okay.
This is more about like how many books have you read, not about completing a book. I think generally people would complete a book
More
if they
than,
bought a book.
Yeah, it's because that's trippy to think about that. Like most of the games that
Like I
people
don't know where
buy-
these numbers are coming from. This 63% of readers don't finish your book, but like what does that mean?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like you have to be a bit more deep dive onto which percentage on that. So it's like
Okay, but that's
it's easy to get the numbers for games,
right because it's tracked.
It's
you
tracked.
see the progress bar.
Yeah. This is the completing a book is more about self-reporting. Right.
Facts. Yeah, you're right. Okay, that's true. That's true. Yeah, but it is weird to think that like
At least for me, I've finished books. Like if I bought the book, I've finished the book.
right. Okay. Yeah.
For the games, I know I haven't finished.
No.
games.
Yeah. I wonder though, like,
Unless it's a really good game, but yeah.
Do you feel nostalgia for any game?
Nostalgia? No, I didn't really get into games till later, right? So it's,
But is there any game that you're like, oh, that I have fond memories of that game?
I'd say racing games, I guess.
Really? Okay, yeah, I feel that.
Like Midnight Madness was a huge.
Grand Theft Auto 5?
Yeah, but that's like very
Yeah, I was gonna
newer
say,
though.
I don't feel nostalgia for it, but I do like my character.
Yeah.
Because that's like, there's no end to that game.
There's no end to that game. That's why you can always just hop in now and play it. So it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like something that isn't there anymore, right? Like I don't see a Midtown Madness anymore. Like that.
Right.
Like what was happening at that time was.
Or better yet, do you think that there's any game now that in the future people will have a lot of nostalgia for? So like how like they re-released Final Fantasy 7, 8, Chrono Cross, like maybe Uncharted, I could see that.
Yeah.
In the future, like people will always look back at Uncharted, God of War,
Yeah.
Last
could
of
see-
Us.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's just those like story-driven games.
These will become like they're already kind of staples of
You're right.
very
right,
good
right.
or games, but they're still very new, right? Relatively new to this. Like in the last few years is when these came out, right?
Right, for sure.
Like it's not an very old franchise.
Yeah, I guess only time will tell. But I feel like Uncharted, like I feel like those, maybe it's the stories that really grab it. Because I mean, the reason why I have nostalgia for those games is because of the story.
Yeah. Yes, but it all depends on what makes money, right? And to what kind of games they make in the future, right?
But I'm wondering,
Like if they stop making story-based games and they're becoming more and more just open world games.
or just like one match games like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like just open world games like Assassins or like those types of open worlds or even richer. Then if like story mode games will become like less and less. So these are things will become things that you remember like that were good.
Right. Okay, I see what you're saying.
If that happens.
Because the story is what makes them unique, whereas like open world games is kind of the mechanics are all the same.
Yeah, and then with the open world games, it's more like you can just hop in anytime, just have some fun and log out. That's why they're
totally.
becoming more like that.
Interesting. Yeah, there is no like pull at your heartstrings one. Ooh, all right. Would you say Assassin's Creed is a nostalgia game?
Maybe the originals. I feel like the new ones.
I was gonna say maybe the originals, but I can't think of the original that made me go, "Oh yeah, that game's amazing." like
I remember
think about it,
bits
like,
of the story. I
that's what I
remember
mean,
bits
right?
of the story.
But
That's where
now I
like
tell you, Uncharted. Remember you watched the trailer for Uncharted? You're like, I gotta play this again.
Yeah.
So it's like it pulled at your heartstrings. Nostalgia was there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but
that's what a storytelling game does.
maybe that's the thing.
A strong storytelling game.
Maybe that's That's the thing. Like, stories are not a big thing anymore. Like they're few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
They are.
Wait, I got one for you. Tekken. Like Street Fighter, Tekken, those are nostalgia games.
Mm-hmm.
You like, I can see somebody playing Tekken or Street Fighter. I'm like, oh, I kind of want to play that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I guess there is a story too, because you have to unlock the story at the end of every character. But like,
Yeah, but the more focus is on fighting.
yeah, it's more
necessarily
fighting.
story.
Yeah, exactly. So what makes a nostalgia-worthy game? Because if I saw somebody
I
playing
think that is
Assassin's Creed-
subjective. I feel like that's subjective to the individual, right?
Oh, okay, fair.
What they've played.
No, wait. But there's cult classics though. Like Tekken is a cult classic. Street Fighter is a cult classic.
Mhm.
Assassin's Creed,
But it's not
really
necess-
a cult classic.
Not yet. Yeah.
But the first game came out like years ago.
Yeah, but it was a different game than second and third.
I know, but that's what I mean. So it's like maybe it's just, yeah, I don't know. Like Witcher, I wouldn't say is a cult classic game. It's a good game. It's a very coveted game.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not a cult classic,
I don't know. Yeah.
right? It's weird to think about.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say God of War is a cult classic.
That was.
It's a good game. Last of Us is a cult classic. That was only 2 games though. I didn't even play the second game, but that's a cult classic,
Mhm. Yeah, that will stay.
right? God of
Yeah.
War, I don't know. Like you love it because you played all the other games, but
Mhm.
personally, after playing one game, I'm like, it was good, but like I don't feel the urge to like replay that story.
Yeah, no. More excited for the new one than necessarily playing the old one.
Exactly. But think about, you played Uncharted again simply because you watched somebody talk about the game and you're like, oh, I gotta jump. Remember that? You played
Yeah.
So it's like, what is that calling? I don't know.
It's what has pulled your heartstrings, I guess,
Yeah, I guess.
as a
yeah.
game. Yeah. Or what you remember from those games.
But there's so many memorable things for other games too.
Yeah, it's just something that's subjective.
Oh, I see. If you made an attachment while you're playing the game.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay, fair. No, I only bring this up because I saw Uniqlo released a bunch of T-shirts for Final Fantasy, and I was like, oh, why Final Fantasy?
Is there a new one coming or something?
No. They just, because like Chrono Cross came out, and they're just like, they're just trying to capitalize on that, like otaku.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was like, what makes Final Fantasy so marketable? What makes Uncharted so marketable? You know what I mean? These like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I agree with you though. There had to have been something during your, like, something that cemented it in your mind. But like, what makes a cult classic?
Well, I feel like when they like for Uniqlo to bring those things, they have done some research and they know that.
Oh, so you think it's more about like
they know that this is gonna work to sell. Like they've got to have done some market research.
But okay, but why didn't they do like a God of War T-shirt?
I don't think it's as big as you think.
But
I don't think it's
that's
that
what I
big.
mean. That's exactly what I mean. So it's like, how did an old school game garner so much attention? It's a weird thought.
Yeah, it just somehow became a big thing. I don't know.
I'm thinking the story.
I think maybe, but there was a lot of kids that played it are adults now, right? When the first ones came.
Oh, so you think it's more like a time thing?
Yeah, I feel like that's
Could be too.
part of that too.
Could be too. Like 20 years down the line, there's
Because
like
I don't
all these
view
League of
Final Fantasy the
Legends.
same way because I never played it.
Yeah, totally. So like in 20 years, it's like League of Legends T-shirts are out, and people are like, oh yeah, or like Fortnite T-shirts.
I think maybe Fortnite. Yeah, I can see that.
But they already have Fortnite.
Well, yeah, they're gonna merchandise. Yeah, I think it's a different world because that time games weren't really taken as seriously, like before when the first Final Fantasy, all these games are out. Like
fair
for
that's actually a good point.
The
too.
general public, yeah.
Maybe they were diehards because it felt like a niche thing, but now everybody plays video games.
Yeah.
True.
And you can easily
true.
buy merchandise for whatever game you like. So it's like it wasn't that accessible before.
Right. It was like a budding thing, and people who hopped on that like felt some sort of self identity with it because they were like, I'm a part of this crowd.
Mhm. And now everyone's a gamer.
Ooh, Vish. I think you actually hit that because that is actually how I feel. Because now that you said that, like, yeah, I feel like attachment towards Final Fantasy because I was like even I write like if you know you know because only certain people know about this game.
Mhm.
You know, but you're right, now everybody's a gamer because
Yeah.
it's so ubiquitous.
Yeah.
It's like how can you have these cult classics anymore if there's a game every week?
Mhm. I mean, the industry is now bigger than making movies. So
What was I saying?
the video game industry, is
Yeah.
now makes more money than movies.
Oh really? Oh yeah. I think you said
Right?
it before.
They've
Yeah.
become now the big
Right.
thing.
And then before too, good games were few and far between.
Mhm.
Like there was a ton of games for like PlayStation when like Chrono Cross Final Fantasy 7 came out, but like those games weren't very good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like the ones that were good were really good and everyone played them.
Mhm.
Whereas now like every game's good. Like Apex Legends versus Call of Duty. What's the difference? They're both basically the exact same
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Well, people are gonna remember Call of Duty.
Yeah, because like Apex Legends came out like later.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm trying to say. It's like
Yeah,
they're
I get
all
what you're
basically
saying.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like there was
That's
a
interesting.
lot of games that came out even that time, but Final Fantasy is the only one that stood out, or like
Or like Halo. Why did that?
or
stand
Halo.
out?
Yeah.
Remember Unreal,
Yeah.
Quake, Unreal, Counter Strike.
Counter-Strike. Yeah.
Call of Duty was an old. It didn't explode until Black Ops. Remember Call of Duty was the World War II stuff,
Yeah.
and it was
yeah.
like so old. We were like, ugh, I didn't like this.
Yeah.
Counter Strike was the old school version of what Black Ops is today,
Mm-hmm.
but that died out.
Yes. Yeah, I would say yeah.
Like, well, where's the Counter Strike today?
Yeah.
Like,
No, not in the general sense. It's not being played in the general sense. Yeah. Only the diehards.
have you ever played this game called I think it's called Dungeon Master? It's like you're like ruling demons, and then you have to like build fortresses for them to like live.
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't.
No, you know, or here's a great example: StarCraft.
I was about to say StarCraft.
Yeah. That's a cult classic.
Yeah.
That was a one game only. So what made that a cult classic? You know what I'm saying? Like it's weird.
Yeah, it's weird how.
Things,
Yeah, that's true.
because like there's World of Warcraft, but is that a cult classic? I think so, but
Still being played now. It depends on the groups you're in.
I guess true. You go there like, what are you talking about, man? World of Warcraft's amazing. Like, yeah, okay. I guess maybe World of War. I've heard a lot of people talk about that,
But I don't.
but I don't think so.
I would like that game.
Diablo. I've heard a lot of people talk about Diablo more than World of Warcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of those games where everyone's talking about Diablo.
Yeah, they're still doing Diablo, aren't they?
I have no idea.
I've seen trailers, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. The reason why I'm like fascinated by this is because like what you gravitate towards is usually says something about you as a person. It's like, why do we like these things? And it's just interesting for me to like think about.
Yeah.
Like what made that so popular? I don't know.
Like for me to like really like, I do really like God of War, right? But it's not for.
But it's not a cult classic, yeah.
It's not for everyone.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
Still.
So.
Because I remember that there being a lot of hate around the game just because it was a button smasher.
That was the thing. Thank you. Yes, that is why I didn't like it. I remember that was my gripe with it because I was into like fighting games and turn-based combat.
Yeah.
Which is like the like Chrono Cross, like that kind of style. Yeah, you're right. Button
So
smasher.
that's why I liked it. It's just because it's just pure
Simple.
mayhem.
Yeah.
And just run rampant and just go crazy.
But people didn't like that, and I guess maybe that's why I didn't become like a cult classic.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just maybe it's just too brutal in that sense to be viewed in that sense too. And I don't think it's probably
Like,
because it's
too basic.
Yeah,
Like,
too
it's just
basic.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So with
Because
all,
even the new one you played of God of War, that's way different.
yeah, I know you had to like
From
actually
the-
trigger things, and I was like, oh, this is like different now. Like you had
And
aim,
the
press B.
the story was there, but like the story is much more intricate in the newer game, right? So,
Yeah, totally, exactly, yeah, for sure.
yeah.
All right. So with all this in mind, do you think an AI system can create like? Because if you can boil down what makes a cult classic, do you think an AI system could create an algorithm to make the best game ever?
I don't. You'd have to also input in all of what's happening in society. I feel
True.
I feel like that's also what matters.
Yeah, that's why I liked Final Fantasy VII. It was it was like about climate change without telling you it was about climate change.
Right.
There's like a deeper story there.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I feel like anybody who listened to the end of this are like, "What are you guys talking about?" Unless you played any of these games, it's like, yeah, it's like a very difficult one to grasp. But
I mean, I just find it weird that I actually finished that that other game, the one that he's just like a delivery guy. Like, what was the game called again?
a paperboy.
No. Sorry, no. Kojima did.
Oh,
I actually finished that one.
Death Stranding.
That's
I feel like that's a cult classic.
that will be a cult. Yeah, that's a weird game.
That would be a cult classic. It's like Metal Gear Solid, also a cult classic. Kojima makes cult classics. Even though I didn't play Death Stranding, I can acknowledge that Death Stranding is most likely going to be a cult classic. Like if you put a Death Stranding t-shirt in the future, people are like, "Oh, I love this game."
Maybe it's got to be something to do with being different, like something.
Maybe
because he did something very different, like.
But he's always been like his Metal Gear
But his
Solid
stuff
games have been always like about society. Maybe that's what it is. It's like a societal dissection.
Another, yeah.
Maybe actually
That could be. Maybe that is what it is.
Right. Like okay, so Final Fantasy VIII is not a cult classic. Everyone actually hated that game. Final Fantasy VII was a cult classic, but it had to deal with climate change. Metal Gear Solid, cult classic. It had to deal with politics and like futuristic technologies. Death Stranding. I don't know what that's about, but it does seem like a cult classic as well. So like maybe you're right. It has to do with like or like something societally driven or like something that you can gravitate towards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that was a weird game though, Death Stranding.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, like there was a baby and there was like invisible monsters and stuff.
Yeah, the guy carrying a baby. Yeah, that's very interesting. Very weird stuff. Very weird stuff.
I follow Kojima on Instagram. He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
Weird guy. But he's a cool guy.
Oh, yeah. Not in a bad way.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, anything else about video games?
No, I mean, they're all cool. Everything's good.
Sorry, actual last thing, because I just remembered this. Tokyo Vice. We won't really get into it fully because we haven't fully watched it, but in line with the Northman, Tokyo Vice felt like that to me. Because when I watched Tokyo Vice, I was like, dude, people live completely different lives.
Yeah.
Like when you watch Tokyo Vice on, was it Crave?
Yes.
So
HBO. It's HBO Max. Yeah.
If you watch it, you're like, different parts of the world live completely different to Western ideology. Like in Tokyo Vice, when you see Japan, it's very old school meets new school kind of thing, you know? Like the traditions with the Yakuza.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this is very archaic. You know?
Yeah.
But it's still going on. That's weird, you know?
Yeah, you should watch it. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm going to continue it. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
I have to watch the latest 2 episodes.
Is it done or?
One more episode to come out next Thursday.
Is it like
8 episodes total.
And then will there be season 2 or is it like
I don't know.
Does it look like it wraps up?
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, that would be good because I hate like.
I feel like it's a one-time series.
Okay. You know Severance, the one that came out?
Yeah.
They have season 2 and it ended on such a crazy cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh, I'm so annoyed by that.
Yeah.
So I like these limited runs better than.
I feel like it might be, but they haven't really. You have to look at when the show comes. They write limited series.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
So if they say limited series, then it's just for that.
Okay,
If they say series, there could be more. So it could be more of Tokyo Vice, but
I wouldn't like. I'd prefer. Just
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the same story. Sometimes you can have like that where it might still be in the world of Tokyo, but different characters.
Oh, okay, so it's not the same guy. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, could be. I don't know what the future is for that. Depends on how this last episode will end.
Okay, but if you watch Tokyo Vice, it is weird to think that there are different places that are unlike. That's all. Again, that's traveling. You need to travel, man. Like, yeah, our world is very eclectic. And without the internet, we wouldn't know about any of it, which is so trippy.
We would be stuck in our own box.
We would, yeah.
Thinking that's how the world works.
Yeah, all praise the internet. All right, till next time. Take it easy, Vish.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all those fun things, and check out our sponsors, Zenro Clothing Co., Portian Bakery, and Podbean. Take it easy, Vish.
Peace.